20 funny things about the 1970s we all experienced. The 1970s were a one-of-a-kind ride. Funky, fun, and full of unforgettable moments. Whether it was lava lamps lighting up your bedroom, disco beats shaking the dance floor, or bell-bottoms flapping in the breeze at a backyard cookout, everything had its own flair. But let's be honest, some of it was just plain wacky. In this video, we're dialing it back to the most bizarre and hilarious parts of growing up in the 70s. So, grab your mood ring and let's groove through the memories. Lava lamps of the 1970s. If you wanted your room to feel just a bit groovier, or like a mad scientist's lounge crossed with a cosmic dream, you only needed one glowing icon: the lava lamp. This wasn't just a lamp, it was a vibe. A glowing, bubbling mood machine that turned any room into a swirling portal of color and calm. Inside those glass cylinders, molten blobs of wax danced slowly in a glowing liquid, rising and sinking in a hypnotic rhythm. Watching it was more than passing time. It was an experience. Hours could drift by as you lay back in your beanbag chair. No music, no distractions. Just the soft hum of the world and those dreamy, shape-shifting blobs moving to a rhythm all their own. Whether you were throwing a party, meditating under a poster of Led Zeppelin, or just daydreaming with your toes buried in shag carpet, the lava lamp was always in the background, casting shadows, setting moods, and making everything feel just a little more magical. It may sound strange now, being mesmerized by wax in a bottle, but in a world before endless screens and glowing notifications, a lava lamp was pure, unfiltered escape. And honestly, that gentle glow still feels like something we're all quietly missing: the polyester suit. In the 1970s, fabric choices were endless, but somehow we all zeroed in on polyester like moths to a mirror ball. It didn't matter if you were heading to the office, a cousin's wedding, or getting ready to tear up the disco floor. Chances are you were rocking a polyester suit without a second thought. Why? Because it was practical, wrinkle-resistant, machine-washable, and durable enough to outlive most relationships. But let's be real, what we thought looked sleek and futuristic now screams plastic parade. And no 70s suit was complete without that iconic butterfly collar, flapping in the breeze like it was trying to catch a flight to Studio 54. The louder the pattern, the shinier the fabric, the cooler you felt. Or so we told ourselves. Looking back, it was fashion on full blast. Part space-age fantasy, part fashion faux pas, and all heart. Sure, it could fry your hair with static, but it also brought flair, freedom, and a whole lot of funk. Pet rock craze. In the mid-1970s, America was swept up in one of the strangest, most hilarious fads ever: the pet rock. It didn't bark, didn't need a walk, never made a mess, and it never, ever moved. And that was the whole appeal. This brilliantly absurd idea came from Gary Dahl, an ad man with a sense of humor and a genius for marketing. One day in 1975, he looked at a plain gray rock and thought, why not make it a pet? So he boxed it up with breathing holes, included a witty care manual, and sold it as the ultimate low-maintenance companion. For $3.95, you could bring home a stone with personality, or at least packaging that made it feel that way. And Americans loved it. In less than 2 years, Dahl made a staggering $1.5 million off something you could find in any backyard or driveway. Sure, it was silly, but it was also kind of perfect. In a decade full of weird trends and wacky inventions, the pet rock stood out as a monument to 1970s quirkiness. It asked nothing of you but a smile and maybe a little shelf space. Looking back, it's hard not to appreciate how something so simple, so ridiculous, could make millions of people laugh and say, yeah, I need one of those. Mood rings. Mood rings were more than just fashion. They were wearable mysteries. Sleek, colorful, and wrapped in a hint of magic, these little bands promised to do the impossible. Reveal your innermost feelings through color. At the heart of each ring was a layer of thermotropic liquid crystals, tiny chemical chameleons that shifted shades based on your body temperature. Supposedly, blue meant you were calm, violet meant you were feeling frisky or energized, and black? Either your hands were freezing or you had some serious emotional baggage. Science? Questionable. Fun? Absolutely. People bought into the magic with open hearts and curious fingers. Teenagers wore them like emotional weather vanes. Boyfriends gifted them to girlfriends, half sweet and half sneaky, part love token, part emotional radar. They weren't accurate, but they were captivating. Mood rings captured something uniquely 70s. Our fascination with self-discovery, our love of groovy gadgets, and our belief that even a little ring might just understand us better than we understood ourselves. Looking back, they were pure novelty. But in a decade of big feelings and bigger flair, it made perfect sense to believe your ring knew how you felt. Maybe even before you did. The metric system that never stuck. On December 23, 1975, President Gerald Ford signed the Metric Conversion Act, a bold move to nudge America into the modern world of measurements. The plan? Inch by inch, ironically, we'd wave goodbye to pounds and miles and embrace grams, liters, and kilometers like the rest of the globe. But America had other plans. The government envisioned a smooth transition. The public, however, saw it as a full-blown identity crisis. Inches felt personal. Gallons were familiar. Trying to picture a football field in meters? No thanks. Most people just shrugged and stuck with what they knew. Imperial measurements, imperial stubbornness. Schools tried teaching the metric system. Highway signs tested kilometers per hour. Milk cartons flirted with liters. But the national response? A collective meh. And so the grand metric dream quietly faded, leaving behind a uniquely American contradiction. A country that officially prefers metric, but still buys gas by the gallon, runs 5Ks in miles, and measures snowfall in inches. Today, we live in a weird limbo, half metric, half imperial, fully confused. Want to know your height in centimeters or your car's speed in kilometers per hour? Grab a calculator and prepare to be baffled. It's a classic example of 1970s ambition meeting good old American resistance, and a reminder that changing habits is a whole lot harder than changing laws. Which of these 70s memories made you laugh or say, "I remember that"? The most? Share your favorite moment in the comments below. Avocado green appliances. Step into a 1970s kitchen, and the first thing to hit you wasn't the smell of meatloaf. It was the color. Bold, unapologetic, and everywhere. Forget stainless steel and minimalism. This was an era where your refrigerator wore avocado green like it was headed to a fashion show, and your oven proudly glowed in harvest gold. These weren't just colors, they were attitudes. Earth tones ruled the day. Copper tone brown, almond, mustard yellow, each one turning ordinary appliances into statement pieces. Kitchens became cozy color palettes that stretched wall to wall. Matching mixers, tinted toasters, even green blenders that looked like they belonged in a garden. And the bathrooms? Oh, they joined the party too. White toilets were out. Instead, it was all about pastel pinks, powder blues, and yes, that infamous pea green. Toilet lids wore shaggy carpet covers like hats. Tank tops had matching wraps, and entire bathrooms coordinated like they'd been dressed by a 1970s fashion designer. Even the toilet paper followed the trend, available in soft pastel shades to match your decor. Lemon yellow rolls? Check. Blush pink? You bet. The only thing spared was dignity. Mercifully, copper tone brown toilet paper never made it out of the brainstorming phase. Macramé Decor. If you stepped into a home in the 1970s, chances are you were greeted by a jungle of handcrafted knots. Macramé wasn't just a trend, it was a movement. Wall hangings, plant holders, coasters, curtains, even lampshades were lovingly looped and twisted by hand, giving every room a touch of boho charm and homemade pride. It was the craft of choice for every artsy soul and stay-at-home creative. Rope, dowels, and wooden beads flew off shelves as kitchen tables transformed into fiber art studios. And at the heart of it all, the legendary macrame owl, wide-eyed, wise-looking, and watching silently from countless living room walls. If you didn't have one perched above your couch, you might have missed the full 1970s experience. But macrame was more than just decoration. It was personal. It was therapeutic. It was a quiet rebellion against mass-produced sameness. A way to say, yes, I made this with 437 knots and a lot of patience. Those ropey relics are mostly tucked away in thrift stores and antique shops, waiting for someone to rediscover their retro charm. And let's be honest, if shag carpet and bell-bottoms can make a comeback, those macrame owls might just spread their wings again. Shag carpets. No home was complete without shag carpet in the 1970s. It wasn't just a design choice, it was a full sensory experience. These thick, fuzzy floor coverings transformed every room into a plush paradise. People didn't just walk on them, they lounged, stretched out, and even made shag angels just for fun. Available in bold, groovy colors like avocado green, burnt orange, mustard yellow, and chocolate brown, shag carpet brought warmth, comfort, and unmistakable style to living rooms and bedrooms across America. The longer the fibers, the cooler your floor looked and felt. But while it looked and felt fantastic, it was a nightmare to clean. The deep pile trapped everything: dust, crumbs, toys, jewelry, and the occasional lost remote. Vacuuming alone didn't cut it. Many households owned special shag rakes to fluff and maintain the carpet like a backyard lawn. And if you dropped gum or a lit cigarette, say goodbye to that patch forever. Over time, what was once the pinnacle of cozy, carefree decor became more of a maintenance headache. Still, nothing quite says 1970s like the sight or feel of a room wrapped in wall-to-wall shag. Love it or hate it, it left a lasting impression underfoot. Saturday Night Live, SNL in the 1970s. When Saturday Night Live hit the airwaves on October 11th, 1975, it didn't just debut, it detonated. Live from New York became the battle cry of a bold, brash, new kind of comedy. Created by Lorne Michaels, the show threw out the rulebook and gave us raw, unfiltered humor, right from Studio 8H. It was weird, it was wild, and it was absolutely unforgettable. The original cast, John Belushi, Gilda Radner, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and others, were more than comedians. They were rock stars of late-night TV. Their sketches didn't just make people laugh, they became Monday morning legend. Whether it was Belushi's over-the-top samurai characters or Gilda's lovable quirks, SNL delivered a weekly dose of chaos that fans didn't dare miss. And the magic? It was live. No rewinds, no reruns, no do-overs. If you weren't in front of your TV, you were out of the loop. Saturday Night Live lives on, with streaming options and ever-changing casts. But those early years, raw, unpolished, and brilliant, set the standard. They didn't just shape sketch comedy, they helped define an era. The humor might have evolved, but that original spark? It's still flickering in every punchline that dares to push the envelope. The rise and fall of disco. If the 1970s had a heartbeat, it pulsed to the rhythm of disco. More than just music, disco was a dazzling cultural phenomenon, full of glitter, glam, and groove. Clubs came alive with swirling lights, mirrored ceilings, and dance floors packed with people moving in time to a beat that felt almost hypnotic. From Donna Summer's sultry vocals to the Bee Gees' unmistakable falsettos, disco didn't just entertain, it moved you. Even artists outside the genre couldn't resist its infectious energy. The Rolling Stones went disco with Miss You, and Kiss surprised fans with their catchy hit, I Was Made for Lovin' You. Despite Gene Simmons famously disliking the track, it became a commercial success and proved how deeply disco had permeated pop culture. But not everyone was ready to stay under the mirror ball. On July 12, 1979, Chicago DJ Steve Dahl staged Disco Demolition Night at a White Sox baseball game. What started as a promotional stunt, blowing up a crate of disco records, spiraled into a chaotic riot, symbolizing a fierce backlash. Almost overnight, disco went from dominant to despised in mainstream America. Still, disco never truly died. While it faded from US charts, it thrived overseas and laid the foundation for house, electronic, and modern dance music. Its flamboyance, energy, and joy live on in retro nights, film soundtracks, and playlists today. Disco was bold, it was unapologetic, and for one shimmering decade, it turned dance floors into temples of rhythm and release. Thank you for watching. To continue with more content, comment 1 to let us know you're still following. Men's unbuttoned shirts and chest hair trend? Men's fashion wasn't just about what you wore. It was about how you wore it. And nothing said confidence like an unbuttoned shirt and a proud display of chest hair. The deeper the V, the cooler you looked. If your shirt didn't open at least halfway down your torso, were you even trying? This wasn't about being subtle, it was about swagger. A tuft of chest hair peeking out beneath a wide collared shirt, preferably paired with a shiny gold chain, was the ultimate symbol of masculine appeal. Icons like Burt Reynolds, Tom Jones, and John Travolta turned this look into a cultural standard. They weren't hiding anything, they were owning it. It was the era of disco, after all. Confidence was key, and fashion was loud, bold, and unapologetically flashy. That open shirt and fuzzy chest look practically begged for a spin under the mirror ball. Fast forward to today, and the tides have turned. Smooth, hair-free chests have taken over, with grooming routines that involve razors, wax strips, and even lasers. But trends are never truly gone. Just like flared pants, vinyl records, and mustaches, chest hair may yet stage a glorious return. Because if the 70s taught us anything, it's this. Fashion is a loop. Confidence never goes out of style. And sometimes all it takes is one unbuttoned shirt to start a revolution. The bump and the hustle, iconic dances. In the disco-drenched world of the 1970s, music wasn't just for listening, it was for moving. And when the bass dropped and the mirror ball spun, everyone hit the floor with moves that defined a generation. Two of the most unforgettable? The bump and the hustle. The bump was pure 70s fun. Cheeky, simple, and delightfully low effort. You and your partner stood side by side, and on beat, you'd bump hips. Left, right, back again. No choreography, no pressure. Just a rhythm-fueled excuse to get close, laugh out loud, and maybe earn a bruise or two. It was flirtatious, bold, and best of all, easy for anyone to try. Then came the hustle, a slicker, more polished groove that swept the nation thanks to Van McCoy's hit song. This wasn't just a dance, it was a vibe. With gliding steps, graceful spins, and partner synchronization. The hustle made dancers feel like royalty under the disco lights. It turned roller rinks, basements, and iconic clubs like Studio 54 into living dance movies. Whether you were hip-checking in someone's kitchen or spinning across a color-lit floor in platforms and bell-bottoms, these dances were the heart of the disco era. They weren't just about movement, they were about connection, joy, and celebrating life to a beat you couldn't ignore. Gym, Fixx, and the running craze. In the late 1970s, when jogging in public still raised eyebrows, one man helped turn running into a national obsession. His name was Jim Fixx, and in 1977, his best-selling book, The Complete Book of Running, did more than just talk about cardio, it sparked a cultural shift. Fixx wasn't a professional athlete or a flashy celebrity. He was an everyday guy with a powerful message. Running could transform your body, clear your mind, and maybe even extend your life. With practical tips, inspiring stories, and a no-nonsense tone, his book landed in the hands of millions. And suddenly, jogging wasn't weird. It was a movement. Fixx became the face of fitness. Clad in sweatbands, short shorts, and well-worn sneakers, he was often seen pounding the pavement with determination. He proved that anyone, regardless of age or background, could reclaim their health, one step at a time. But fate had its own plan. In 1984, Fixx tragically died of a heart attack while out on a run. He was only 52. The news shocked the nation, and critics pointed to the irony. Yet doctors noted his family history of heart disease, suggesting that his active lifestyle may have delayed the inevitable. Despite the tragedy, Fixx's influence endured. He didn't just start a fitness trend, he changed how Americans thought about health, aging, and taking charge of their bodies. Long before smartwatches and fitness apps, there was Jim Fixx, and a nation inspired to run, the Ford Pinto. Among the many cars that rolled off assembly lines in the 1970s, few are remembered as vividly or as infamously as the Ford Pinto. Launched in 1971, the Pinto was Ford's answer to the growing demand for small, affordable cars. It wasn't flashy. With its boxy shape and bare-bones interior, the Pinto was more practical than pretty. But that wasn't what sealed its fate in history. Beneath its modest frame lurked a critical design flaw, the gas tank. Positioned just behind the rear axle, it had a nasty habit of rupturing and catching fire if the car was hit from behind. In the worst cases, a minor fender bender could turn into a deadly inferno. At least 27 deaths were linked to rear-end collisions involving Pintos. The outrage grew when internal memos surfaced, showing that Ford was aware of the danger, but allegedly chose not to fix it. The reason? A cost-benefit analysis reportedly showed that payouts for potential lawsuits would be cheaper than retooling the car. Despite the controversy, the Pinto sold well. Maybe it was the low price. Maybe it was denial. Or maybe drivers simply didn't know the risks. The Ford Pinto stands as a cautionary tale, a moment when corporate decisions collided with public trust and cost-cutting came at a deadly price. It's a stark reminder that in the race to win markets, safety should never be left behind. Billie Jean King and the Battle of the Sexes. Let's rewind to 1973 for one of the most unforgettable showdowns in sports and social history, the Battle of the Sexes. This wasn't just a tennis match. It was a spectacle, a statement, and a challenge to outdated beliefs about gender roles in athletics. Bobby Riggs, a 59-year-old former Wimbledon champ and self-proclaimed male chauvinist, was convinced that no woman, regardless of age or talent, could beat him. He bragged, he taunted, and he made headlines claiming male superiority on the court. It was all part showmanship, part provocation, but entirely serious in its implications. Stepping up to the challenge was Billie Jean King, then 29 and one of the top players in the world. Calm, focused, and determined, she saw the match as more than a game. It was her chance to defend the legitimacy and talent of women in sports. And she delivered. In front of 30,000 fans at the Houston Astrodome and an estimated 90 million viewers worldwide, Billie Jean didn't just win, she dominated. With grace, power, and strategy, she beat Riggs in straight sets. That victory sent shockwaves far beyond the tennis world. It helped shift public perception, challenged sexist attitudes, and elevated the women's sports movement to new heights. Billie Jean King walked off the court that night as more than a champion. She became an icon, a trailblazer, and a lasting symbol of equality. The Battle of the Sexes wasn't just history, it was a turning point. What's one thing from the 1970s you wish today's kids could experience? Let's see how many of us miss the simple joys. Road trips with kids. Before iPads, streaming apps, or noise-canceling headphones, a 1970s road trip with kids was less relaxing getaway and more test of endurance. For hours on end, families packed into station wagons, no seatbelts in sight, with little more than a box of crackers, some juice boxes, and sheer imagination to survive the ride. Entertainment? That came in the form of car games like I Spy, License Plate Bingo, and 20 Questions. If you were lucky, you had a travel-sized board game with half the pieces missing, or a tangle of cassette tapes for sing-alongs. But more often, it was just the hum of the engine, endless scenery, and the occasional shout of, "He's on my side." The back seat quickly turned into a battlefield. Who got the window? Who was hogging the armrest? Who was breathing too loud? Invisible boundary lines were drawn in vinyl upholstery and crossed constantly, sparking squabbles that could last for miles. And when the noise reached a certain decibel, Dad's voice would cut through like thunder. "Don't make me stop this car!" Or worse, "Do you want me to turn this car around?" That one always sounded like an empty threat, until the brakes squealed. Yet somehow, those chaotic road trips became cherished memories. Cramped, loud, and completely analog, they were a rite of passage, and a snapshot of childhood before screens took over the back seat. Backyard family cookouts. Backyard cookouts in the 70s were more than just meals. They were a summertime ritual, a reason to gather, and a slice of American life served hot off the grill. As soon as the weekend rolled around and the sun peeked through the clouds, out came the charcoal grill, the fold-up lawn chairs, and the unmistakable aroma of summer. Dad, proudly manning the grill in tube socks and sandals, flipped burgers and hot dogs like a seasoned chef, while Mom hovered nearby with her signature potato salad or a crock pot of baked beans. A transistor radio played soft rock or Motown hits in the background, while the sizzle of meat hitting the grates competed with the laughter of kids darting between lawn sprinklers. Guests came and went without RSVPs. Neighbors, cousins, and friends just showed up, often with a side dish or six-pack in hand. Kool-Aid flowed freely for the kids, while grown-ups cracked open cans of Tab, Schlitz, or cold root beer. Everyone claimed a spot in the yard, sinking into those aluminum-framed lawn chairs with woven plastic straps that left your legs tattooed for hours. Paper plates buckled under the weight of coleslaw, corn on the cob, potato chips, and watermelon slices. Bugs buzzed, conversation flowed, and nobody looked at the screen, except maybe the mesh door slapping shut behind someone grabbing more napkins. There were no smartphones, no pressure, and no Pinterest perfect spreads. Just good food, great company, and the kind of easy joy that lingered long after the grill cooled. It was summer, 1970s style, and it was perfect in its simplicity. Playing records together. Music wasn't a private experience tucked behind earbuds or curated by algorithms. It brought people together. The turntable stood proudly in the living room, spinning records that set the tone for parties, sparked conversations, and shaped memories. It wasn't just background noise, it was the heartbeat of the home. Family and friends would settle in, some cross-legged on the shag carpet, others curled up on the couch, as someone flipped through a stack of vinyl records with care. Choosing the next album was an event in itself. There was no skipping tracks or jumping ahead. You dropped the needle and committed to the journey, one song at a time. Maybe the Eagles were telling stories with Hotel California, or Stevie Wonder's voice was filling the air with soul and grace. Fleetwood Mac might have been weaving harmonies that struck something deep inside. And as the music played, people swayed, sang along, or simply lay still, letting the sound wrap around them like a warm blanket. The gentle crackle of the needle hitting vinyl was its own kind of magic, proof you were about to feel something real. There were no phones buzzing, no screens flickering, no digital noise. Just pure sound and the people sharing it with you. Music wasn't background, it was everything. It brought people closer, created moments, and carved memories that stayed long after the final note faded. In those simple sessions around the record player, the 1970s taught us how to really listen and how to do it together. The 1970s gas crisis. If you lived through the 1970s, chances are you remember the gas crisis, not as a headline, but as a daily headache. Sparked by international oil shortages and political unrest, the crisis sent shockwaves across the U.S., exposing just how dependent the country had become on gasoline. The timing couldn't have been worse. Most American cars at the time were massive chrome-covered gas guzzlers that barely passed a station without needing a top-off. So when fuel supplies dipped, panic ignited. Drivers raced to fill their tanks before prices spiked, or pumps ran dry. Gas lines stretched for blocks. Some people camped in their cars overnight, radios on and engines off, just waiting for their chance to grab a few precious gallons. But nothing was guaranteed. Stations began flying color-coded flags. Green meant gas was available, red meant don't bother. In some places, purchases were limited to 10 gallons per customer, if you even made it to the front of the line before the fuel ran out. Frustration boiled over. Fistfights broke out. Police were called to direct traffic at the pumps. What had once been a quick errand became a tense, time-consuming ordeal. But the crisis did more than disrupt commutes. It changed minds. Americans started thinking about fuel efficiency, alternative energy, and the consequences of global dependence. Compact cars gained popularity. Speed limits dropped. Conservation entered the conversation. The gas crisis wasn't just inconvenient, it was a wake-up call, and for many, it still lingers as a symbol of an era running on empty. Bicycles, bell-bottoms, and the struggle of the 70s kid. For kids growing up in the 1970s, a bicycle wasn't just a toy, it was freedom on two wheels. It was your ride to the corner store, your escape route from chores, and your golden ticket to summer adventures. No helmets, no GPS, no grown-ups hovering, just a pack of kids, the open sidewalk, and the thrill of wherever your legs could take you. You rode from sunup to sundown, looping the block with your buddies or flying downhill with a breeze in your face. But those bikes, they weren't built for gentle cruising. Chains slipped, tires popped, and reflectors went missing. And if you were a true 70s kid, odds are your chain guard didn't last long. That's when fashion clashed with function. Bell bottoms, those gloriously wide flared pant legs, looked cool but spelled trouble near a spinning chain. One wrong move and your jeans got sucked into the sprockets. Suddenly, your epic ride turned into an emergency pit stop, stuck mid-street, yanking denim free while your friends rode ahead, howling with laughter. Still, that was part of the charm. Bruised knees, busted chains, grease stains, and tangled jeans were just badges of honor in the world of childhood adventure. Today's kids may ride lighter bikes and wear tighter pants, but they'll never know the pure joy and ridiculous danger of racing through the neighborhood with nothing but a banana seat, a bike bell, and bell bottoms flapping in the wind. We hope this little journey through the funny things of the 1970s gave you a good laugh, and maybe even sparked a few warm memories. Drop us a comment and tell us what stood out most from your 70s days. And if you enjoyed the ride, be sure to like, subscribe, and share Back to Yesterday with someone who remembers it too. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.